I used to think retirement would be quiet. I was wrong. At exactly 3:17 a.m., my worst nightmare kicked in. The HOA president, Karen Davies, barged into my home demanding I surrender my retired K-9 partners. Her excuse? She claimed the neighborhood had a problem with their breed, called them dangerous. The truth? The only one in danger that night was her, if she ever tried to lay a finger on them. But let me back up. The first thing I noticed wasn't the lock. It was the silence. That deep, heavy kind of silence that feels alive, like the house itself is holding its breath. After 20 years as a cop, 15 of them handling K-9s, you don't lose the instinct for when the silence turns wrong. My eyes snapped open before my brain even caught up. My hand found the heavy mag light on my nightstand. Beside me, my wife Lisa stirred. "Marcus?" she mumbled, half asleep. But then I felt it, a vibration through the floorboards, low, steady. Not thunder, not the AC. It was coming from downstairs, Titan and Nenah, my littermate German shepherds, my partners. They weren't barking, not yet. They were growling, low and controlled, a warning only I could truly understand. Threat present. Stand by. Some cops would have reached for a weapon. Me? I reached for my jeans. My dogs were my weapon system, my family. Each of them 100 pounds of disciplined muscle and loyalty. I swung my legs out of bed, the floorboards freezing under my feet. The red glow of the clock said it all. 3:17 a.m. "Stay here," I whispered to Lisa, calm, firm, the voice of habit. "Lock the door behind me." Click. The lock engaged. Barefoot, I moved into the hallway. The growling grew louder, perfectly in sync, like stereo speakers tuned to menace. At the bottom of the stairs, they stood side by side, Titan and Nenah, an immovable wall of fur and teeth between the front door and everything I loved. That's when I heard it, a metallic scrape, a jiggle at the lock. Someone was trying to force their way into my home. Maple Shadow Estates wasn't supposed to be like this. The worst crimes here usually involved toilet-papered oak trees or bickering over lawn gnomes. But this was different. This was deliberate. I crouched on the staircase, peering through the balusters. Titan and Nenah's ears flicked back toward me, tails twitching once in recognition. They were waiting for the signal. The scraping grew clumsy, impatient. Whoever it was, they weren't a pro. They were arrogant, entitled. Then, snap. The lock gave way, a beat of silence. Then, bang. A kick rattled the door in its frame. My blood went cold. This wasn't theft. This was a home invasion. "Quiet," I commanded, low and sharp. Instantly, the growls cut off, but their bodies stayed coiled, vibrating with restrained violence. Another kick. Wood splintered, the deadbolt cracked, and then the door burst. Inward. Framed in the pale pre-dawn light stood the last person I expected. Karen Davies. 5'3", pastel pink tracksuit, flashlight in hand like she was on some tactical mission. Her face twisted with rage. "There they are!" she hissed, her beam locking onto Titan and Nenah. "Shadow Guard, move in! Secure the assets!" Two masked men shoved past her, armed with catchpoles and heavy-duty nets. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. The president of my homeowners association was breaking into my home with hired muscle. "Karen, what in God's name are you doing?" I said, stepping into the light. She flinched. Shock flashed in her eyes, but it vanished, beneath a mask of smug authority. "Marcus Hale," she recited, like reading a citation. "You're in violation of Covenant 14B. Emergency amendment passed at midnight. All combat breeds are hereby banned. These animals are to be surrendered immediately for relocation." She waved a sheet of paper. "Refusal will result in further action." The goons advanced. Titan and Nenah didn't move, but the air around them crackled like a storm about to break. Their eyes never left mine. waiting for the word. "You are not taking my dogs," I said, planting my feet. Her smile was ice. "Oh, I think we are. This is for community safety, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." She nodded to her. Men 1 lunged forward with the catch-pole aiming for Titan's neck, and in that split second I knew our peaceful retirement was over. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was war, and Karen Davies had just fired the first shot. But to understand how it came to this, how a woman in a pink tracksuit led a 3 a.m. home invasion, you have to understand Karen, and you have to understand Maple Shadow Estates. Karen Davies wasn't just pushing rules, she was rewriting reality. In her mind, Titan and Nenah weren't loyal partners. They weren't family, they were monsters, and she was the only one who could protect the neighborhood from them. The midnight email vote to ban combat breeds was her final move. No debate, no warning. Just a digital ambush designed to land before anyone could fight back. The break-in wasn't about bylaws. It was about power, a performance, a declaration that she was untouchable, that we were just another family who'd cave under pressure. She was wrong. The second her goon lunged with the catch-pole, instinct replaced thought. "My training slammed into gear. Titan, watch!" Not an attack command. A command to engage, to neutralize without destroying. Titan exploded. Forward. 100 pounds of muscle and precision. He didn't go for flesh. He went for leverage. His jaws clamped down on the aluminum shaft of the catch-pole. The man outweighed him by at least 100 pounds. Didn't matter. Titan's bite stopped. Him cold. The pole bent with a sickening crunch, like a soda can under a boot. The thug's eyes went wide. In that instant, he realized he hadn't brought the right weapons, and while his attention locked on Titan, I moved. 2 bounds down the stairs, bare feet slapping tile. I didn't waste a punch. My palm struck the second man square on the ear. Fast. Controlled. Disorienting. He staggered, dropping the heavy net in a heap. That was all Nenah needed. "Nenah, door!" She bolted, not at them, but to the front entrance. She planted herself in the frame like a living barricade. No one else was coming in. No one was leaving until I said so. 5 seconds. That's all it took. 2 Shadow Guard operatives, neutralized. My dogs, steady, alert, untouched. And Karen Davies, the queen of Maple Shadow Estates, standing in. My foyer with her jaw hanging open. Her smug confidence evaporated. What replaced it was pure disbelief. "This is assault!" she shrieked, finally finding her voice. "I'm calling the police! You and your vicious beast attacked my security team!" I bent down, picked my phone up from the side table. Calm, deadly calm. "Go ahead. Call them. Or better yet, I'll do it for you." Her face drained of color as I gestured at the splintered lock, the shattered frame, the bent catch-pole lying on my floor. "Pretty sure breaking and entering still. A felony. Want to explain to the officers why you and 2 masked men kicked in my door at 3 in the morning? She flinched. Her whole empire ran on fear and compliance. She'd never planned for resistance, let alone competent resistance. "This is an official HOA action," she sputtered. "It's all perfectly legal. You received the notice." "What I received was a threat," I said, stepping toward her. "What you committed is a crime. 2 choices, Karen. You and your friends walk out right now, or you stay here and explain. Everything to the cops." Her eyes darted between me, my dogs, and her broken enforcers. Then she snapped. "Get up!" she barked at her men. "We're leaving!" They staggered to their feet, stumbling past Nenah, who never moved an inch. Karen followed last, but before stepping out, she turned back. Her eyes burned with hate. "This isn't over, Hale. I'll have those dogs put down. I'll ruin you. I'll own you." And then she was gone. The adrenaline drained. I called Titan and Nenah back. They released on command, came to heel, perfect as always. I knelt and buried my face in their fur. Partners. Family. targets of someone who wanted them erased. Lisa rushed down the stairs, voice shaking. "Marcus, are you okay?" "We're fine," I said. But I knew better. Karen's parting words weren't empty. They were a declaration. This wasn't a neighborhood dispute anymore. It was a vendetta. The next morning proved it. Taped to our freshly patched door, a $250 fine. Harboring prohibited animals. The notice said the fine would renew daily until the violation was rectified. But that wasn't all. Attached was a grainy video already circulating through the neighborhood. A German shepherd snapping and lunging at a fence. Edited, fake, but terrifying enough to anyone who didn't know better. Karen wasn't just coming after us. She was waging propaganda. I needed help. I scrolled my phone, found a name I hadn't called in years. "Dylan Vega," he answered on the second ring. "Marcus, long time." "What's up?" "I've got a situation. How are your drone skills these days?" 2 hours later, Dylan's beat-up pickup rumbled into my driveway. Looked like it had been through Fallujah and back. Probably had. He stepped out in cargo shorts, a faded Metallica tee, and that same crooked grin that had gotten us, both out of more trouble than I could count. Dylan and I served together in special operations. The kind of guy who could turn a Pringles can into a satellite uplink. After the Corps, he'd gone private. Security, surveillance, countermeasures. A geek with clearance and combat scars. "Nice digs," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Bit beige for my taste. Let me guess, HOA?" His grin vanished when he saw the splintered frame. "Yeah," I said, "and they don't like constructive dialogue." Over coffee strong enough to melt a spoon, I laid it all out. The fines, the break-in, the propaganda video. Dylan studied the clip on my laptop, running it back again and again. His eyes sharpened. "Garbage," he muttered. "Look at the muzzle. Pixelation's all wrong. Background's looped. See that bird? Flies by twice. Amateur work. Convincing but fake." He leaned back, his grin gone. "So this Karen lady runs the block, declares holy war on you and your dogs. That about right?" She threatened to have them put down. Dylan's eyes hardened. "Not happening. This isn't just a power trip, Marcus. This is escalation. Middle-of-the-night raids, forged evidence. Something else is at play here." "Normal. Show tyrants don't go tactical." He started pacing, brain on fire. "Here's what we do. Phase 1. Fortress Hail. We lock this place down. Cameras, night vision, motion sensors, full-spectrum coverage. You'll have more surveillance than a CIA safe house. Anything moves on your lawn, we catch it in 4K. He scribbled plans on a napkin, lines crisscrossing like a battlefield map. Phase 2. Recon. I want everything on Karen Davies. Finances, contacts, this Shadow Guard solutions she mentioned. We dig until we know what she had for breakfast. And we talk to the neighbors quietly. She's been terrorizing people. She's made enemies. Time to turn them into allies. Lisa finally spoke up. Her voice was soft, but steady. There's something you should know. The Millers, the ones with the memorial garden. She put a lien on their house. They're retired, fixed income. They're terrified they'll lose it. The words hung heavy in the air. This wasn't about bylaws anymore. This was predation. Dylan stopped pacing. His expression turned lethal. Okay, Phase 1, fortify. Phase 2, recon. Phase 3, he grinned again, but this time it was sharp, dangerous. We turn this queen bee's hive inside out. The first sign came on a quiet afternoon. Near the back fence, I found a half-eaten dog biscuit. To anyone else, it might have looked harmless. But my gut told me different. I sealed it in a plastic bag. I didn't need a lab test. It was poisoned. Karen. Davies wasn't just trying to bully us into surrender anymore. She was trying to kill Titan and Nenah. That was the moment the game changed. This wasn't about defense anymore. It was about offense. I turned to Dylan, who was wiring up a camera with the kind of precision that could probably read a license plate from orbit. "Find her weakness," I said quietly. "Find it, and we'll use it." The next 2 weeks felt like a Cold War. Dylan transformed our quiet home into a surveillance fortress. Miniature cameras covered every approach, almost invisible to the eye. Motion sensors were buried along the fence, synced to silent alerts on our phones. He moved into our spare bedroom, which quickly turned into a command center. A nest of monitors, laptops, and tangled wires he insisted was organized chaos. By day, he vanished into the digital shadows, digging into Karen's life and her company, ShadowGuard Solutions. By night, he became our watchman, eyes locked on the feeds until dawn. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I'd get texts from him like, "Subject Janice is watering her lawn at 3:04 a.m. Rebellion begins." His humor was the only pressure, valve in an otherwise tightening noose. Meanwhile, Lisa and I worked the ground game. We approached neighbors carefully, asking about their own HOA troubles. The response was explosive. That's how we met Sam Coe, a quiet CPA who'd been bled. Dry with fines over the color of his shutters that hadn't been an issue until Karen took control. When he asked to see the HOA's financial records, she buried him in red tape until he gave up. "She runs the books like a private slush fund," Sam said, his voice hard with anger. "But her bylaws make an audit nearly impossible without a majority vote. And she controls the board." I leaned in. "What if we could get you those records?" Sam's lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. "Then I can follow the money." We had a new ally. The real break came one night in the command center. Dylan was hunched over a monitor, lines of code streaming down the screen. His voice was almost a whisper. "I'm in." Karen's precious HOA server had been protected by a single password. "Maple Shadow. She's arrogant," Dylan muttered. "Didn't think anyone would dare look." He dumped everything, financials, meeting notes, emails, and sent it to Sam. Moments later, Sam's reply buzzed on the phone. "Let the games begin." But Dylan wasn't finished. ShadowGuard Solutions was next. On paper, it was a boring LLC with a P.O. box, advertising executive protection and asset relocation. No real client list. Barely any digital footprint. A ghost. "That's how fronts are built," Dylan explained. "Designed to look boring." For hours, he dug deeper, peeling back digital camouflage until suddenly he froze. His hands hovered over the keyboard. "Marcus," he said, voice low, "you need to see this." On the screen, a record from a federal penitentiary. Regular. Deposits into the commissary account of one inmate, Anthony DeMarco. The deposits traced straight back to ShadowGuard Solutions. My blood ran cold. I knew that name. Anthony Mad Dog DeMarco, arms trafficker, one of the most ruthless criminals I'd ever gone up against. Years ago, I had helped put him away, with Rex, my old K9 partner, uncovering the weapons cache that sealed the case. I remembered DeMarco's face in the courtroom, eyes burning with hate as the verdict was read. He mouthed 2 words to me. I'll remember. I had dismissed it as a threat from a caged man. But he hadn't forgotten. "Pull up everything on DeMarco," I told Dylan. Minutes later, he found it. A simple record of next of kin. One living relative. A sister. She had changed her last name after his sentencing, her new name, Karen Davies. The world tilted. It all snapped into place. The move to Maple Shadow, her rise to power, the obsession with rules, the relentless harassment, the ban on my dogs. It was never about lawns or fences. It was about me. It was revenge. She had spent years building this suburban trap, turning an HOA into her personal kingdom, all for the sole purpose of isolating me and destroying what I loved. Lisa walked in with coffee just as I explained. Her face went pale. So all of this, was a setup. A years-long operation, Dylan confirmed grimly. She picked this neighborhood, took control, and waited. For you. Exhaustion hit me like a wave. I had left the world of vendettas behind when I retired. But here it was, waiting for me in the shape of a woman in a pastel tracksuit. Karen wasn't just an HOA tyrant. She was the sister of a criminal mastermind, and she was running a professional dog-napping ring. Through her company, high-value animals, police dogs, military canines, heroes like Titan and Nenah. The revenge was personal, the method was profitable, and we were standing right in the middle of it. Lisa's eyes hardened. She wasn't breaking, she was preparing. Dylan's hands were already back on the keys, his face tight with fury. We stood at a crossroads. Call the feds and watch it drown in paperwork, or fight her on her own terms? I clenched my fists. The old instincts were awake again. We're not going to be victims, I said, voice like steel. We're not waiting for permission. We beat her at her own game. I looked at Dylan. Find where she's keeping the dogs she's already taken. I looked at Sam. Get ready to follow the money trail, because the trap she built for us was about to snap shut on her. Sam, अनफाइनेंशियल रिकॉर्ड्स में धुंध वो सबूत जो शैडो गार्ड और HOA के फंड्स को सीधा जोड़ता हो. मैंने लीसा की तरफ देखा. और हम एक ऐसा जाल बिछाएंगे जिसमें वो फांस कर निकले ना सके. डिसीजन हो चुका था. थाकन गायब हो गई. थाई बस एक थंदी, तेज सफ क्लैरिटी रह गई. करेन डिमार्को जुंग चाहती थी. लेकिन इस बार खेल मेरे शर्तों पर होगा. प्लान 3 फ्रंट्स पे तैयार हुआ. फ्रंट 1, पैसा. हमारा पड़ोसी और CPA एक्सपर्ट, सैम को, HOA की फाइल्स में उतर गया, जैसे शिकार पर निकला हुआ शार्क. अपने ऑफिस से दिन रात काम करके हमें एन्क्रिप्टेड अपडेट्स भेजता रहा. HOA के दूस का इस्तेमाल शैडो गार्ड सॉल्यूशंस के लायबिलिटी इंश्योरेंस के लिए हो रहा है. उसका एक MSG था. दूसरा MSG आया. $5,000 का पेमेंट गया एक कंपनी K9 रीलोकेशन लॉजिस्टिक्स को. शेल कंपनी है, पैसे सीधे उसके पर्सनल अकाउंट में गए. सम इतना मजबूत फाइनेंशियल केस बना रहा था, जैसे एक डॉलर उसके लिए जेल की एक नई सलाख बन रहा हो. फ्रंट 2, डिलन. उसका काम था चोरी हुए डॉग्स को ढूंढना. उसने रीजन किया. ऐसे डॉग्स को ट्रांसपोर्ट करने से पहले कहीं ना कहीं रखना पड़ता है. जगह लोकल ही होगी, जहां बर्किंग सुनाई ना दे. उसने शैडो गार्ड के डिजिटल ट्रेल्स को जोनिंग मैप्स और प्रॉपर्टी रिकॉर्ड्स के साथ क्रॉस रेफरेंस करना शुरू किया. गोल, वेयरहाउसेस, फार्म्स, पुरेन कैनल्स, जो प्राइवेट और एक्सेसिबल हो. तभी हमें मिली एक नई एलाई, मीरा पटेल, एक नर्स जो लेके के उस पार रहती थी. कैरन ने उसके घर के व्हीलचेयर रैंप तक को तोड़ने की कोशिश की थी, बस इसलिए कहते हुए कि अनऑथोराइज्ड मॉडिफिकेशन है. मीरा ने लड़कर केस जीता, पर तब से कैरन उसकी दुश्मन बन गई. जब हमें अपनी सस्पिशन बताई, मीरा तुरंत बोली, वो औरत एक मॉन्स्टर है, क्या चाहिए आपको? और वही बनी हमारे प्लान की चाबी. डिलान ने 3 लोकेशंस शॉर्टलिस्ट किए थे. एक था एक पुराना कैनल, पैम्पर्ड पूछ, जो सपोजिडली 6 महीने पहले बैंड हुआ था. मीरा ने कहा, मेरी क्लिनिक के पीछे जो मेडिकल वेस्ट सर्विस आती है, उसी रोड पर है ये. और मैंने रात के अंधेरों में वहां से व्हाइट वंस आते जाते देखे हैं. ये सब सुनकर हमने डिसाइड किया, आज रात ऑपरेशन होगा. डायरेक्ट अटैक रिस्क था. प्रूफ चाहिए था, अनडिनाएबल. डिलन के पास नया ड्रोन था, हमिंगबर्ड साइज का, इक्विप्ड विथ थर्मल कैम. खामोश और अदृश्य. रात 11 बजे प्लान एक्टिवेट हुआ. ओवरकास्ट स्काई, कोई मूनलाइट नहीं, परफेक्ट कवर. मीरा ने डिलन को एक सर्विस रोड तक गाइड किया. मैं क्वार्टर माइल डोर गाड़ी में बैठा ड्रोन फीड मॉनिटर कर रहा था. सिग्नल लाइव हुआ और स्क्रीन पे बस गोस्टली थर्मल फिगर्स थे. ड्रोन ने उड़ान भरी और पैम्पर्ड पूछ के ऊपर होवर किया. बिल्डिंग अंधेरी थी, लेकिन थर्मल कैम ने अंदार के डोजन्स ऑफ कैनल्स रिवील कर दिए, हर एक में एक लिविंग ब्रीदिंग हीट सिग्नेचर। डॉग्स, बहुत सारे। मेरी धड़कन तेज हो गई। मुझे एक बेल्जियन मालिनुआ पहचान आया, उसकी आंख के ऊपर स्कार था। किलो, मैंने धीरे से कहा। स्टेट पुलिस का डॉग 2 महीने पहले गायब हुआ था। ये सिर्फ पेट्स नहीं थे, ये काम करने वाले ट्रेंड डॉग्स थे। ब्लैक मार्केट में हर एक की कीमत हजारों डॉलर। फिर कैनल का बैकडोर खुला। कारण का आदमी, वही जो मेरे घर पर आया था, बाहर निकालकर स्मोक करने लगा। ड्रोन ने उसे रिकॉर्ड कर लिया। उसी वक्त एक वाइट वन आई और उसमें से खुद करेन उतार गई। पिंक ट्रैक सूट के बजाय अब वो प्योर ब्लैक अटायर में अपने गूंस को डायरेक्ट कर रही थी। डॉग्स वन में लोड हो रहे थे। ये था हमारा स्मोकिंग गन, लोकेशन, स्टोलन डॉग्स, कल्प्रिट्स, सब कुछ वीडियो में। कॉल इट इन मार्कस। डिलन की वॉइस कॉम्स पर क्रैकल हुई। टाइम टू एंड दिस। मैं फोन उठाकर 911 डायल करने ही वाला था कि मेरा बर्नर फोन बज हुआ। एक अननोन नंबर से मैसेज आया। एक डॉक्यूमेंट की फोटो। ऑफिशियल एनिमल कंट्रोल ऑर्डर, टाइटन और नीना के यूथनेसिया का वारंट। नेक्स्ट मॉर्निंग के लिए साइंड, जज के ऑर्डर के साथ। मेरी रूह जम गई। समझ आया, ये शिपमेंट बस एक डिस्ट्रैक्शन था। रियल अटैक कल होने वाला था। अगर अभी पुलिस को कॉल किया, कैरेन अरेस्ट हो जाती, लेकिन वो बेल ले लेती और तब तक ऑर्डर एग्जीक्यूट हो जाता। टाइटन और नीना मार जाते। करेन ने हमसे एक कदम आगे चलकर चेकमाटे कर दिया था। मैंने कॉम्स पर कहा, पुलिस को कॉल मत करो, ड्रोन वापस लाओ, डेटा क्लीन करो। आज रात हमने कुछ नहीं देखा। टीम शॉक हो गई। डीलन प्रोटेस्ट करने हाई वाला था कि मैंने उन्हें यूथनेसिया ऑर्डर फॉरवर्ड कर दिया। सब समझ गए, कैरेन ने गेम सिस्टम के अंदर से खीला है। जज, वेट, एनिमल कंट्रोल ऑफिसर, सब उसकी पॉकेट में। तभी बर्नर फोन पे एक और एमएसजी आया। मरखम के साथ एक नया रुकी ऑफिसर आ रहा है। एवंस ऑनेस्ट है, रश ऑर्डर पर शाक कर रहा है। वो लीड लेगा, तुम्हारे पास एक चांस है। एक अनोनिमस एलाई हमें हेल्प कर रहा था। लाग रहा था वो कोई इनसाइडर है जो करेन की करप्शन से डिस्गस्टेड है। मेरे दिमाग में नया प्लान शेप लेने लगा। रिस्की, डेंजरस, पर शायद काम करे। मेरे ख्याल से करेन खुद कल सुबह आकर देखने वाली है, अपनी जीत देखना चाहेगी। डिलन समझ गया। तो हम उसे एक शो देते हैं, पूरी नेबरहुड को शो देते हैं। मैंने करेक्ट किया। हम एक फेक ट्रिप प्लान करेंगे, कार पैक करेंगे, नेबर्स को बता देंगे कि वीकेंड आउट ऑफ टाउन जा रहे हैं, और फिर कीप एवरी कैमरा रोलिंग, आई ऑर्डर्ड। नॉट जस्ट वन, एवरी सिंगल वन। डिलन, आई वांट फुल कवरेज, all angles, plus the micro drone fixed on this house. And I don't just want a private feed. I want the power to send this live to every single phone in this neighborhood with one tap. For a moment, Dylan's expression was hard, calculating. Then it twisted into a slow, predatory grin. A live community broadcast of a home invasion? I can do better. I'll hijack the emergency alert system Karen built for the HOA. She wanted control? We'll turn her own weapon against her. The plan was bold, reckless, 1,000 ways to collapse, but the brilliance lay in its simplicity. We would lure her into a trap of her own making. When Markham and the rookie Evans arrived to carry out the kill order, they'd find nothing but an empty house. Karen would believe we'd run. She'd see her opening, a chance to not only kill the dogs, but to stage a break-in, plant evidence, maybe worse. And that's when she'd send in her hired shadows. But she wouldn't find an empty home. I would be there, hidden, waiting. The floodlights Dylan had rigged would ignite like judgment itself, cameras recording every criminal move. And the finale wouldn't be blood or violence. It would be Titan and Nenah, trained not for carnage, but for control, proving who truly held discipline. This wasn't about just clearing our names anymore. This was about showing the world who the real predators were. We worked feverishly, turning our house into a stage. By dawn, the place was primed like a coiled spring. Lisa was safe at Mira's, watching a duplicate feed, ready to call the police at the right moment. Dylan was stationed in his truck 2 blocks away, puppeteering the digital strings. and I was crouched in a cramped, reinforced crawl space beneath the porch, hidden with Titan and Nenah. The earth was damp, the air close. But through a vent, I had a perfect view of the backyard. The dogs felt it too, the silent electricity in the air. Ears twitching, eyes sharp, yet utterly calm, waiting only for my signal. The night before, I had staged our departure, loading bags, waving sadly to one of Karen's watchers, then circling back under the dark. To her eyes, we had fled, abandoned. At 8:05 sharp, the white animal control van rolled up, exactly as expected. Dylan's streetlight feed caught it in crystal clarity. Evans, the rookie, stepped out first, nervous but firm, papers in hand. Markham, the corrupted one, didn't bother to move. Evans knocked, circled, checked gates, radioed in. Locked out, he shrugged. The van pulled away. Phase 1 complete. Minutes later, the real act began. A black, unmarked van glided into the cul-de-sac. My heart skipped when I zoomed in. Karen herself at the wheel, her face glowing with victory. She parked just out of sight, giving her signal. 2 men in dark work clothes emerged from another car. Her muscle, the same ones from the kennel raid. No masks this time. Overconfidence. "They're at the fence," I whispered into my mic. "Copy. Standing by to make them famous." Dylan's voice crackled back. With bolt cutters, they sliced through the chain link like paper and slipped in. At the back door, a crowbar did its work. Wood cracked, hinges gave, they were inside. "Now!" I hissed. Dylan hit the switch. The backyard exploded in white light, floodlamps turning night into noon. The intruders froze, trapped like insects, under glass. At that same instant, every phone in Maple Shadow Estates buzzed with an emergency alert. But instead of a storm warning, it was a live broadcast. Home invasion in progress at the Hale residence. I gave the calmest order of my life. "Titan, Nenah, halt!" They launched like shadows made flesh, not to attack, but to control. They circled, split, herding the men into the open yard. No barks, no bites, just flawless, disciplined intimidation. Every time a thug bolted for the fence, a dog was there, lightning fast, blocking the path, pushing them back. It was a silent ballet of authority, a display of training and intelligence. From my screen, I saw neighbors waking, lights flicking on, doors opening. Faces stared out, lit by the glow of their phones, watching live as the truth finally surfaced. The neighborhood crowded into the backyard, no longer whispering rumors but seeing the truth unfold with their own eyes. They saw the cut fence, the splintered door, and 2 intruders pinned in place, not by savage beasts, but by 2 flawlessly disciplined guardians. Then came the final act. Lisa had dialed the second the break-in began. The rising wail of sirens echoed through the cul-de-sac, closing in like judgment. 2 squad cars screeched to a halt at the curb, officers flooding the yard with weapons drawn. Their eyes darted from the floodlit scene to the 2 men cornered, to the calm dogs holding them there, and finally to the gathering crowd of neighbors, who watched in stunned silence. That's when Karen's van whipped around the corner. She must have been tracking the commotion. The moment she spotted the chaos, her carefully built plan burning down before her eyes, live-streamed across every phone, her face collapsed into raw disbelief. The van jerked to a stop. An officer strolled over, tapped her window, and gestured for her to step out. The trap had closed. What followed moved fast. With dozens of neighbors as witnesses and Dylan's flawless multi-angle broadcast, the case was airtight. Karen's hired muscle folded almost instantly, giving full statements and pointing to her as the mastermind before their cuffs even clicked shut. Armed with the intel we'd gathered, the police raided the pampered pooch before nightfall. Inside, they uncovered 43 stolen dogs, including Kilo, the State Police Malinois, and several other decorated service canines. Our little HOA scandal exploded into a federal case overnight. Karen DeMarco Davies, the so-called Queen of Maple Shadow, was unmasked as a criminal with a 10-year vendetta and a network of fraud. Charges stacked higher than anyone could count: conspiracy, racketeering, theft, interstate transport. The judge, citing both her wealth and her arrogance, denied bail outright. Her assets were frozen, her reputation obliterated. Sam Coe, our quiet CPA neighbor, became an unlikely folk hero when prosecutors revealed his meticulous financial records, evidence that exposed every cent she siphoned from us. The man who once hid behind spreadsheets was now the one who had toppled an empire. Thus, rot spread further. Markham, the dirty animal control officer, was arrested alongside Dr. Finch, the veterinarian who enabled her schemes. Evans, the rookie, became the key witness in the internal affairs probe. We never learned for certain who tipped us off at the beginning, but a week later a gift basket appeared on our porch. 2 enormous chew toys and a simple card with 2 words: "Thank you." Almost overnight, Maple Shadow changed. The fear that hung over us for years vanished like smoke. Karen's puppets on the HOA board resigned in disgrace. For the first time, the town hall filled not with enforcers and spies, but with determined neighbors. Sam was unanimously elected, board president, with Mira at his side as vice president. Their first act was symbolic but powerful, dismantling every absurd rule Karen had imposed. Basketball hoops reappeared, gardens returned, color, long band, flooded back into our streets. And, through it all, Titan and Nenah became local legends. Strangers stopped me on the street to thank them, to pet them, to call them heroes. They handled the attention like they handled the fight: calm, steady, dignified. Weeks later, the stolen dogs were all returned. I'll never forget watching Kilo's handler cry as he hugged his partner again. Titan and Kilo sniffed each other, wagged their tails, and in that quiet moment seemed to acknowledge each other as professionals. By then, the story had run its course. Justice had landed, not because the system suddenly worked, but because ordinary people refused to bow to fear. We hadn't just defended ourselves, we had defended an entire neighborhood. And now I sit on my freshly re-stained deck, cedar shining, rich and defiant against the old HOA rules. Lisa leans into me, her head warm against my shoulder. Titan and Nenah doze at our feet, twitching in dreams of chasing squirrels instead of criminals. Children's laughter drifts up the street. A neighbor's dog barks, not in warning, but in joy. It is quiet here now. Not the brittle silence of fear, but the real kind, the kind you can breathe in. I've learned something in all this. A man will fight as far as he has to when his family is threatened. But the real victory isn't measured in battles won. It's measured in what you build when the smoke clears. We didn't just survive. We helped give our neighbors their voices back. We didn't just save 2 dogs. We restored a community. And as the sun sets over the lake, I know one thing with absolute certainty. After all the noise, the lies, and the chaos, we are finally home. And this time, the peace is real.